Isn't there a danger in relying on mathematical and scientific evidence to prove Islam? As we've seen, some have made statements of disbelief as it did not align with the so-called scientific findings like Rashid Khalifa and the number 19. Should we not emphasize more on the linguistic miracle of the Qur'an, as that is what Rasulullah ﷺ presented?
Yeah, I absolutely agree that the emphasis, and I forgot to mention, that should be on the linguistic miracle of the Quran, because that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points to as its miracle. But Allah also points to the other things. He mentioned them in the Quran, like when He mentions the ba'uda wa ma fawqaha and all these other things. Allah also points to them, but you're right. The standard shouldn't be the scientific discoveries, because science itself is always changing. They discover new things and they change. But we can find that many of these things that Allah mentioned in the Quran have been proven, I wouldn't say by science, but I would say by scientific tools. So for example, a famous one is the Ankabut. Allah mentions the Ankabut, the spider, اتخذت بيتا, that took her house. Now, this was used as a way to challenge the Quran. Why is the Quran saying that the spider is, اتخذت means the feminine form. Why is it using the feminine form of a spider for the spider's web? Surely it should mention because Ankabut is a masculine word. Why does it specify the feminine version of that word? Now, with scientific tools, they were able to find that only the female spider spins the web. Now, this is something, I wouldn't say science, but this is scientific tools that undiscovered a fact, that the female one spins the web. So that is a case of reality. But you're right, some scientific theories, they change, like the issue of the Big Bang. There are ayat that seems to point to the Big Bang, but there's many scientists that don't believe in a Big Bang. So are you going to only take the one because it agrees with the Quran? There is areas of grayness, but where it's like black and white, the bahar, the salty water and the sweet water. This is not scientific. This is a fact. Scientists enabled us to discover that. So there is areas of grayness we should leave, but the areas which is so like discovered, like the sun and the moon. One is a emitting, one is a reflecting. These Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points to, and are I would say supplementary proofs of the Quran. But the fundamental proof of the Quran, yes, is its linguistic miracle. Unfortunately, though, Muslims in this day and age, they find the other ones more convincing, because maybe they have weak grasp of the Arabic language. Maybe that's why Allah put these ones, because our grasp of the Arabic language is very weak today. It's very difficult to appreciate the Arabic miracle of the Quran.
There are medicinal miracles of the Prophet ﷺ reported, like the dipping of the fly in the water. How do we understand these reports, as some do not believe and say it contradicts modern scientific findings? Can we use these reports?
This one, apparently I've heard, not 100% sure on this, that they prove that this isn't true. But the Prophet ﷺ, his message wasn't about cures. For example, a lot of Muslims today do hijama. Hijama isn't prophetic. The Greeks did hijama before the Prophet ﷺ. So we have to be careful in terms of what is the risala, what is the message that Allah revealed, and what is of the things that the Prophet ﷺ brought, which isn't part of that message.
Is this mathematical miracle of the Quran that you presented in line with Allah al-Mahfuz?
What I'm trying to say is that there's clearly a perfect balance in the way the Quran has been ordered. The Quran that we have is from the Lawh al-Mahfuz. So that's what they say Laylatul Qadr. That's one opinion, that the Laylatul Qadr is the day it was revealed from Lawh al-Mahfuz to the first heaven. So that is, and opinion. So what this mathematical wonder isn't to show that it's one thing is to show that points that it's exactly this, the same as what is revealed. No ayah has been missed out. But it's also, I wouldn't say it's a miracle. I say it's a wonder, because this alone is not going to prove to people. Some people might think that is just, I think it's absolutely impossible. But you can't say concrete, I would say, that this proves that the Qur'an is true.
Who were the early ulama that came up with this mathematical miracle of the Qur'an?
So this was founded by a scholar in the 1976. So it was only able of doing so with computers. And this is the thing that I'm trying to point to, that all of these things that we mentioned, they were only able to be discovered in modern times with modern technology. And the whole essence is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling us, this generation, this 100 years, stay strong, stay firm, and return.
Back in the days, many of the people I know came into Islam through the books of Harun Yahya, and we know what he turned out to be. How important is the way we come to belief?
There is not one way to come to Iman. Some people come to Iman through strange ways. You hear stories, but whatever confirms Iman in the heart of the person, that is something special. Now, like a lot of, the miraculous nature of the language, it's very difficult for most people to actually understand that and grasp that. But things like what we're mentioning now, like the embryology, like that scientist, I think it was Maurice Bucaille, he was like, this is impossible. How can a nomad in the Arabian desert know this? Was a key scientist in the field of embryology. For him, it was night and day. There's other ones, like, for example, the Fir'aun. He also discovered the Fir'aun. Amazing. Like one, I don't know if you know about the one about the وَمَا بَكَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And the heavens and the earth did not cry over him. Do you guys know this one? Amazing. They only were able to discover this. It was something hidden for thousands of years before Islam. So the Fir'aun, when Allah drowned him in the Red Sea, they wrote eulogies about him in hieroglyphs. And they wrote, the heavens and the earth did not cry, the heavens and the earth cried over his loss. So this was thousands of years ago, written in hieroglyphs in ancient Egypt. Hieroglyphs were lost, the language of hieroglyphs were lost to humanity. Until the Rosetta Stone, which is just around the corner, in British Museum, they were able to translate hieroglyphs to Phoenician, to Greek, I think it was, right? And then from Greek, you can get it into modern languages. And then they found on the walls where Ramses II, I think, was buried, and the heavens and the earth cried over him. Why is that important? Because the Qur'an says about Fir'aun, وَمَا بَكَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. So I think it's samawati wal ard. And the heavens and the earth didn't cry over him. Allah is referencing that inscription on the walls in Egypt that was lost for thousands of years. So Maurice Bucaille was like, this is impossible. How did this Qur'an know that? So different things convince different people.
Those who leave Islam are usually a minority. Isn't Islam the most fastest growing religion? Should we not be happy with this, however they came in?
Absolutely. And some things you hear, when I watch a lot of convert videos, they would like ask Allah to give them a sign. And Allah does give them a sign. That was, as it concrete. My heart is sealed, hatta al-maut. So different things convince different people. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us so many in the Qur'an. different people will be convinced by different things. So now we find with like the people Ahl Gaza, they have converted so many, probably thousands of people to Islam without doing a single word of da'wah. Without doing a single word of da'wah. By their sheer character and fortitude and patience, they have converted thousands of people to Islam. Sorry? And the whole world. And they have, believe you me, the walls that have fallen in Gaza, by their patience, they are dropping the walls of the superpowers. It is not Gaza that is ruined. It is the world order that is ruined because of the fortitude and patience of these people. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين. How many a time is it a small host overcome a mighty host by the power of Allah? Wallahu ma'a sabirin, and Allah is with the patients.
Many who converted to Islam came with a big buzz, and that eventually died down. It's not because they were not sincere. How do we reignite and rejuvenate this feeling?
Iman needs to be constantly cultivated. Constantly. You need to constantly question your Iman. This is fundamental. You need to go to those who disagree with you and find out, are they on the truth? I was listening to a podcast the other day about a scientist. He's a Jewish scientist, a religious Jewish scientist, looking into the origin of the Big Bang. And he says, at best, you can be agnostic via science. And okay, why is he saying that? He's a religious Jew, but he's saying at best you can only be agnostic. And he's coming up with things, it just doesn't make any sense. But this is the key, that you need to constantly question your Iman. The problem we have is, as you mentioned, we take it, that's it. I'm scared now that if someone tells me is going to weaken that. If what you have is the truth, everything you question will only affirm that truth, if you have the truth. But if you're scared of that, you're going to want, like the Christians, they just don't want to know. Go to Speaker's Corner. They start screaming and shouting, blah, blah, blah. They try to over you because they don't want to weaken that weak faith they already have. That's why you see the Muslims out there, they just wipe the floor with them. They come back with some other stuff all the time because we have the truth. Just tell me what you have. There's nothing to fear. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in a beautiful ayah in the Qur'an. فَلْيَمْدِغُوا الْحَقِّ عَلَى الْبَاطِلِ فَلْنَقْذِفُ بِالْحَقِّ عَلَى الْبَاطِلِ فَيَدْمَغُهُ فَإِذَا هُوَ زَاهِقٌ وَلَكُمُ الْوَيْلُ مِمَّا تَصِفُونَ. And when we hurl the truth at the falsehood, it knocks out its brains, and it completely destroys it. So this is the view we should have. I have the truth. But why are those people saying they're scientists, they've spent their whole life discovering things? How come they are not upon the truth that I am? So the Iman needs constant questioning and cultivating. It will do nothing but strengthen that. And this is the problem that people have. They don't constantly question. We want to sit in our echo chambers and safety mechanisms. And that was when Iman becomes weak. Because you're rejecting other people's views just because it's different to yours. That's wrong. If you read the Qur'an, time and time again, Allah is talking about the things that the Quraysh came with in terms of their apostasy. Like I was just reading about Surah Al-Kahf. why was Surah Al-Kahf revealed? It's a very beautiful story. I don't want to go into it. But it's constant dialogue. The Qur'an is the story of the Prophet ﷺ and Islam. All the arguments, the debates, the challenges, the events that happened. So it's fundamental for us to be close to this Qur'an. And I mention this all the time, we should recite it every day. We should study it every day. And it's fundamentally important to learn the Arabic language. And I will say this bluntly and blatantly. If you don't understand Arabic, you will never understand the essence of this deen. Never. Because you will never understand the communication of Allah to His servants. When you know ayat of the Qur'an, what you are looking at is windows of someone else's view that He's giving to you. Snippets of how they view Islam. Now when you read the Qur'an regularly, daily, the story, the narrative, the context, everything, you are reading the story of the Qur'an. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intended it to be revealed. And the Qur'an will become personal to you. Because believe you me, events will happen in your life. You will pick up the Qur'an and Allah will give you a verse. Sometimes, many times, the first verse you read is exactly about what happened to you just then. Exactly. You will go to the Salah many times. The first ayah you hear the Imam recite is something that you were just thinking about. Something that just happened to you. Now, if you do not know Arabic, all of this is happening to you, but you are completely oblivious to it. And that's why some of the scholars in the past said it's wajib for Muslims to know Arabic. Because if you don't know Arabic, you don't know the essence of this deen. You're reading Quran, you don't even know what you're reading. You're only knowing parts of the translation, what someone has given to you.
Some countries, even without being fluent in the Arabic language, held on to Islam, like Indonesia and Somalia. While others who know Arabic, like many Egyptians and Sudanese, are not as attached to Islam.
Most Arabs, they can't understand the Quran. It's very different to what they speak. So they intentionally weakened, even the modern standard Arabic. If you understand modern standard Arabic, which most Arabs understand, is very different to Arabic Quran. Very different. They will pick up the Quran, they won't really understand what it's talking about. Sorry? It's like Shakespeare to them. Yeah. The Quran is very poetic. The Quran Arabic. They will laugh at you. That's right. So it was intentionally done. Also, the Ammiya, which is the colloquial, is a very watered down. It's like Jamaican compared to English. Honestly, it honestly is like that. It's patwa. Why did the West Indians speak patwa? It was like a very basic form of language that they can just get by with. English was maybe too advanced for them. Ammiya, which is the colloquial Arabic, is a watered down version of Arabic. Whereas you look in Spain, just maybe, let's say 600-700 years ago, they were speaking high level Arabic. So the Arabic language and Islam, wherever Islam went, Arabic had to go with it. Because without that, you won't understand Islam. So you're absolutely right there. But today, the regimes have intentionally further weakened the Arabic language to make the people further away from the Quran.
There are many verses in the Quran that direct us to ponder on creation, power of Allah, using our intellect, and so on. Surely these are indications for mankind to come to certainty of belief and not merely by imitation and emotions.
Iman is yaqeen, conviction. And whatever convinces us, that's what convinces us. So we don't have to come to Iman by a certain route. I'll give you an example. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks to us in the Quran about the creation, the fact not that the Quran is the truth, that there is one God. None of those, from my knowledge, talks about the issue of limited and infinite. None of them. But in today's world, in the scientific atmosphere, that seems to be one of the most convincing. That everything is limited, finite, it needs a fundamental cause. That fundamental cause you won't find that anywhere in the Qur'an, from my knowledge. One of the most convincing for me about the proof of Allah is not even those, is the fact that there are laws. Okay, you can talk about the material and it came and it was always there, but where did the laws come from? Did the laws come before the material or after the material? Now that is like you dumbfound people. None of that is mentioned in the Qur'an. So whatever convinces, convinces. And there's no one way to Iman. There's many different ways to Iman. Like the example of Ahl Gaza, by their sheer character, no arguments whatsoever, how do these people become so strong? I want to become Muslim. So that's how I see it.
Are we not swallowing their push to make us more materialistic and reliance on science to answer our purpose and human problems? The danger is, if something in Islam does not make sense scientifically, then it should be rejected.
Remember, I mentioned that there was a war between the scientific community and the church, started by Galileo. It's an actual war. Okay? Now, in war, you cannot cede defeat to the other party. Today, with modern scientific discoveries, it's actually proving with their scientific models and instruments that there must be a creator to the universe. There's many, I don't know if you look into the issue of fine-tuning, the issue of the expanding universe. There's many things that they are discovering, like the cell. The intricacy of the cell is amazing. So now, with the more science is getting more developed, you're finding things. Well, hold on a second. This is too impossible and illogical and implausible to say this was not designed. That's why you have now the whole movement started by Christians of intelligent design. Because we see design everywhere. It's implausible to say it's not designed. Now, this issue of evolution, the way I see it, is that anything that could say that we don't need a God is clutched onto. Now, if you look into, I read Stephen Hawking's book, The Greatest Show on Earth. And when you read that book, honestly, there's more arguments for a creator and against evolution than there is for evolution and against a God. You just go through and go, this is just nonsense. There's no evidence for evolution. There's no evidence. There's circumstantial evidence, and all the evidence is about adaptation. Nothing about a species becoming another species. No evidence whatsoever. But it's the only thing that could be plausibly put that people, scientific community can say, look, we don't need a God because we have evolution. Does that make sense? And then the other scientists have no experience of biology, like that one I mentioned to you that I was listening to the podcast about. He's an astrophysicist. He's not a biologist. And he goes, there's no much evidence for evolution. Well, are you a biologist? Biology or evolutionary biology you will not probably not get into an evolutionary biology master's or PhD if you said, I don't believe in evolution. So it's another echo chamber. Only people that believe in evolution are going to become PhDs in evolution. So yeah, all these evolutionary biologists believe in evolution. Well, of course they do. Because if they didn't believe in evolution, they wouldn't become an evolutionary biologist. But there are, from record, some evolutionary biologists who are looking at it and thinking, hold on a second, this is nonsense. There's no science, there's no evidence, there's no maths in any of this. But anything which they can cling on to and say, we don't need a God, they will take. Yeah. And there's even some Islamic scholars that believe in evolution. It's kufr. What is kufr? I was mentioning this yesterday. Kufr is from kafara. Kafara is the same word as we have in English. Cover is to conceal. You know that this is nonsense, but you only want to use it because it will give you some comfort in your kufr.
You made an interesting point that in our times, what connects us more to the proof of Islam are these scientific and mathematical miracles. The important matter is having yaqeen, certainty upon it. But isn't it possible that this yaqeen is confidence and mere trust and not actual certainty?
I just want to mention upon that, Surah Al-Nasr. When did Surah Al-Nasr get revealed? Conquest of Makkah. And what is Surah Al-Nasr talking about? All the tribes, after what event did they become Muslim? When Surah Al-Nasr, when did they get revealed? After the Fath Makkah. So what were the tribes doing? This waiting to see who wins. Who wins between Quraysh and Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam? Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam won, now we're going to become Muslim. And that's what happened. That was how most of the Muslims, the time of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam became Muslim, because the Muslims won. They were, they're like more than say glory seekers. A little us. So that's the nature of insan. And the important thing I wanted to mention is, how did we become Muslim? What was our iman? Amantu billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi wa rusulihi. That's it. That was our iman. That's how iman was given to us, because we read it in the book. That's why we are in the state we are in today, because our iman was like as weak as a castle of sand. We are Muslim because we read in the Al-Qaeda that is Amantu billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi. And some beats as well, if we didn't get it right. We have to have iman by yaqeen. The Sahaba, why were they so amazing? Why did they fight for their lives for Islam? Because each and every one of them came to Islam by yaqeen. And it's mandatory upon every Muslim to come to Islam via yaqeen, conviction, 100% conviction, not by reading it in a book.